Okay, so when you hear the word constitution, what comes to mind? Probably some thick, dusty old book filled with complicated legal stuff, right? Well, it's so much more than that. It's actually the living blueprint for an entire society. It's the ultimate rule book that kind of holds everything together. So let's dive in and figure out what that rule book actually does.
I mean, think about a country as incredibly diverse as India. You've got people with different religions, different languages, completely different cultures. You even have people who swear by samosas and others who say it's all about the idli. So how on earth do all these different groups with their own totally valid points of view agree on a basic set of rules to just, live together? That's the huge fundamental problem a constitution is designed to solve.
So, at its very core, a constitution is the supreme law of the land. It's got this special legal sanctity, which is just a fancy way of saying it's the highest authority, period. Every single other law, every rule has to line up with what the Constitution says. And if it doesn't, it's invalid. It's just that simple. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is above the Constitution.
Now, to really get your head around this, it helps to picture it like a legal pyramid. There's a really clear hierarchy of rules in a country, and yeah, you guessed it, the Constitution sits right at the very top. This right here shows that legal pyramid perfectly. At the peak, you've got the Constitution. Now, one step below that, you have the laws, which are passed by the legislature, so think Parliament. And then at the bottom, you have the rules, made by the executive, which is the government of the day. And what this means is the government can't just make up a rule that breaks a law, and Parliament can't pass a law that goes against the Constitution. It's a brilliant system of checks that makes sure the core principles of the nation are always protected.
So, okay, we've established it's the supreme law. But beyond that, what does a constitution actually do? Well, it turns out it has 5 incredibly important jobs that go way beyond just being a list of rules.
Basically, a constitution has 5 main gigs. First, it gives us the basic rules so that a super diverse society can coordinate and function. Second, it spells out exactly who has the power to make decisions. Third, and this one is absolutely crucial, it puts limits on what the government can and can't do. Fourth, it empowers the government to work towards a better society. And finally, and maybe this is the most important one, it helps forge a fundamental shared identity for everyone in the nation. We're going to focus on a few of these, starting with how it keeps power in check.
All right, let's talk about one of its most vital functions, limiting government power. See, a constitution has to do 2 things at once. First, it has to give the government enough power to actually get things done. But then, just as importantly, it has to put a leash on that power so it isn't misused.
There's this really powerful analogy that explains this perfectly. Think of the Constitution giving the government a tool, like a knife. It says, hey, you can use this knife for good things, to apply butter, to build the country, but it also draws a very clear line in the sand, saying you absolutely cannot use this knife to harm people. It sets those fundamental, non-negotiable limits on power.
But here's the thing. A constitution isn't just about preventing bad stuff from happening, it's also a forward-looking document. It lays out this amazing vision for the kind of fair, just, and equal society that the people hope to create one day.
And if you're wondering why that aspiration for a just society is so critical, well, look at this. A report from Oxfam found that in India, the top 1% of the population holds as much wealth as the bottom 99%. A constitution sees deep-seated inequalities just like this and gives the government a mandate, a mission really, to create a more just society, to close this gap and fulfill the dreams of its people.
Now we're getting to what might be the most profound job a constitution has: shaping a nation's collective moral identity. I mean, this goes way beyond just laws and rules. We're talking about the core values that bind a diverse people together and make them feel like one nation.
But this brings up a really tough question. In a country with so much diversity, everyone has their own moral code, right? It's shaped by your religion, your culture, your family. So, whose morality gets to be the basis for the nation's laws? Should it be based on your beliefs or my beliefs? This is where things can get really complicated.
And you know what? This isn't just some abstract debate. This exact conflict played out in India during the huge legal battle over Section 377. That was an old colonial-era law that actually criminalized homosexuality. The case became this massive fight between popular, societal morality and a totally different, more fundamental kind of morality, what we call constitutional morality. And the journey was a total legal roller coaster. In 2009, the Delhi High Court struck down the law.
a huge victory. But then, in 2013, the Supreme Court actually reversed that decision, arguing that the LGBTQIA+ community was just a minuscule minority and not deserving of protection. It was a devastating blow. Then, in a landmark judgment in 2018, the Supreme Court reversed itself again and finally decriminalized homosexuality for good. So, what changed?
The answer lies in this incredibly powerful idea: constitutional morality. See, in 2018, the Supreme Court didn't base its decision on what was popular or what certain groups believed. No. Instead, it looked to the core values that are baked into the Constitution itself: liberty, equality, and justice for every single individual. The court declared that this is the morality that has to guide the nation, not the shifting tides of social prejudice.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. A constitution does way more than just list out your rights. It provides a shared political and moral identity. It basically says that no matter what our other identities are, our religion, our language, our caste, our first and most fundamental identity is that of a citizen, bound by the core values of liberty, equality, and justice.
So I'll leave you with this one final thought to chew on. If a constitution is a society's moral compass, what happens when the people themselves and their collective values start to shift and evolve over time? It's a question that really shows you just how dynamic and how alive this ultimate rulebook truly is.